The tweens are surrounded by stories. That's why we call them digital natives. They live in a media-saturated world. And even though the stories may differ a bit, the values that are underpinning the different stories are quite similar. Whether there is a film, a television episode, music video, YouTube, the internet, whatever genre, whatever sort of medium where they meet the actual story, the underpinning values are very often the same. And they are geared towards the individual. And that challenges us as a church, because since we know that the worldview is also developed around self, peers, world, and beyond, we should really take into consideration what sort of values are there in the different stories that relate to these four foci. And if we just have a close look, we immediately see, wow, an enormous strong emphasis on what I look like, on image. Secondly, having a good life, a good time, having close friends and a lot of wonderful experiences. Thirdly, having a lot of possessions, money, having an easygoing life. Fourthly, deciding for myself what's right, what's good, what's important. And we could have a long list. We don't have time for that. But it also boils down to I having a good life, I living life in the way I find it the best. There are so many opportunities, I better choose what's okay with me. And if we move from those typical ingredients of values in a story and go deeper and ask what sort of values are actually underpinning these what sort of worldviews are underpinning these values that we see so easily in different stories, we find, of course, postmodernism, dealing with relativism, with individualism, with hedonism, but we also find quite a bit of existentialism. There is no God out there, no religion whatsoever, but I have to sort of find meaning by making choices in order to create meaning in my own life, in my own daily life. And also, of course, there is this pick and mix attitude. I can have some of that religious stuff and some of that, and it all suits me well because it works for me. So neo-paganism blended with New Age, Eastern pantheism, it's all there. But the bottom line is, I choose what's good for me. And if we relate that to tweens being in the phase of life where the quest of identity is so important, and worldview being closely related to the quest of identity, who am I? And we listen carefully to what's going on in these stories, we see that the input that young people get from the media regarding finding an answer to who am I, and regarding developing their own worldview, we realize that it's so self-centered. And when it's self-centered, they also bear the whole burden of finding happiness and meaning in themselves and for themselves. There is no given meaning, there is no given identity, but they have got the impression that they have all opportunities open for them, and they better figure out what's there for me. It sounds wonderful, but there is a flip side there. because they carry the whole burden themselves if they are not that happy, if they really struggle. Well, I'm the one to blame.